Hello and welcome back to Pure Stoic Truth, where timeless wisdom meets modern connection. Thank you so much for being here. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a moment of insight that could change the way you love, lead, and live. In our last video, we explored something subtle yet powerful. Say this one thing while hugging and watch her reaction. But what if I told you? The real magic happens not when you speak, but when you simply know where and how to be present. That leads us to today's topic: touch her here, and she'll never forget you. Secrets of female psychology. Have you ever felt like you were so close to reaching a woman's heart, but something invisible kept you on the outside? What if her silence wasn't distance, but a quiet invitation, a test of whether you could feel what others missed? And what if the most unforgettable thing you could give her isn't a grand gesture, but the space to be entirely herself? Let's dive. And she never said it out loud, but you could feel it. That tiny pause before she smiled. That subtle lean forward, just close enough to feel something, but not quite enough to be held. She looked whole, yet not entirely complete, like someone had once promised her something sacred and left her waiting in silence. You, like many others, might have believed that you needed to win her affection through charm, words, or effort. Maybe you thought her distance meant she needed more convincing. But no, she wasn't asking to be impressed. She was longing to be understood. And for years, she's watched well-meaning men fail that test. There is a part of her that no one sees, unless she decides you're safe enough to show it. That part isn't fragile. It's not a flaw. It's her center. It's where her instincts live in stillness, where her past echoes in quiet memory, where her sharpest wounds have never fully healed, yet she carries them with strength. She doesn't hide it out of fear. She protects it because most don't know how to approach it without trying to take something from her. And she's tired of being taken. That's the part of her you need to reach, not with your hands, but with your presence. With your ability to notice the things others overlook. With your willingness to sit in the unknown and stay, without reaching for control or comfort. That's the kind of touch that lingers, the kind that leaves an imprint not on her skin, but on her soul. But here's what no one teaches you: her guardedness isn't always about you. Sometimes it's the shadow of a past where love was conditional, where closeness came with a cost, where intimacy felt like something owed, not given. So she built quiet defenses. A sharp joke, a quick glance away, a shift in tone. If you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. You'll label her as moody, distant, uninterested. But if you're really attuned, you'll see it for what it truly is. A test not of strength, but of emotional safety. The kind that says, I won't use your truth against you. I won't pull away when you show me your rawness. I won't rush you through silence just because it makes me uncomfortable. Most men don't pass that test. They come in loud, polished, eager to prove they can lead. But they haven't led themselves through anything real. They might win her attention, her curiosity, even her body. But they never reach the part of her that remembers. And because of that, she forgets them. But when a man touches the part of her that doesn't need to be solved, just felt, she remembers. She never forgets, because it's rare, because it's steady, because it allows her to unfold. Not performed. It doesn't demand, it doesn't chase. It simply witnesses, and that witnessing becomes sacred. If you're still trying to get her to feel what you want, instead of noticing what she's already carrying, you'll never truly meet her. And if you can't hold her at her deepest, she'll never trust you at her surface. She isn't cold. She's just tired of pouring warmth into hands that never knew how to hold it. What she's guarding isn't a game. It's a record of who stayed when she was most unlovable. And if that list is short, it's not because she lacks love. It's because the cost of being open in a world that demands her to shrink, that cost is too high. You don't win her by being smooth, successful, or impressive. You reach her when you stop performing and start listening to the pauses. The ones in her breath, her gaze, her voice. What makes a woman unforgettable isn't what you give her. It's what you awaken in her. That moment when she speaks of pain and you don't interrupt. When she shares her dreams and you don't redirect. When she goes quiet and you don't try to fix it. That silence, it's not empty. It's full of everything she's never had permission to feel. Touch her there, where her guard is strongest. But her soul is reaching. She might test you. She might push you away with sarcasm or stillness. That's not rejection. That's memory whispering. Don't trust too fast. Don't fall for someone who won't stay through the storm. And trust me, there will be storms, emotional, human, beautifully imperfect. If you want to be the one she remembers, you need to meet her there, not to rescue her, not to tidy the mess, but simply to say, I see you, and I'm still here. Because if she has to carry her pain and your discomfort with it, she won't carry you long. She's not difficult. She's just done offering her soul to those who treat it like a footnote. That is the beginning of what it truly means to touch a woman where she'll never forget you. In the next part, we'll go even deeper, uncovering the exact ways your energy, words, and presence anchor her emotionally. In the last part, we explored the unseen, sacred part of a woman, the part that remembers deeply, feels silently, and waits patiently. Not to be impressed, but to be understood. And now we continue. What she needs isn't someone to shield her from the world. She doesn't need a protector with armor. She needs someone who won't become another reason she has to protect herself. So she watches closely, not just what you say when everything is easy, but how you respond when things get uncertain. When she's quiet, when her emotions show up in ways that don't flatter your ego, can you sit beside her sadness without trying to erase it? Can you respect her anger without trying to out-talk or fix it? Can you hold her tenderness without turning it into something transactional? Because if you can't, she'll feel it instantly, no matter how attractive, successful, or confident you seem. She'll begin to withdraw, not out of punishment, but out of self-preservation. She's lived enough to know that what looks like love and what lasts like love are often two very different things. And you have a choice. Not to perform, not to manipulate, but simply to become the kind of man who can touch her without needing something in return. Who can listen not just to reply, but to truly understand. Who can look past the surface and not flinch at what's underneath. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be honest. Not just with her, but with yourself. Because most men who never reach that deeper part of her never learn to reach that deep within themselves. They fear their own silence. They flee from their own pain. They confuse control with strength. And so when they stand in front of a woman who carries depth, they try to shrink her, to make her easier, more manageable, more like them. But that never works. Because a woman of depth isn't looking for someone to mirror her. She's looking for someone who respects her rhythm, even when it's slow, even when it pulses with intensity. even when it challenges your comfort. If you can sit beside her long enough to understand the way her silence speaks, she will remember you. Not as a role you played, but as a man who made her feel less alone in a world that keeps asking her to shrink. And if you can't, she will let go, quietly, clearly, not out of bitterness, out of clarity. Her heart isn't a stage. It's not a place to rehearse being loved. It's the final act where only truth is allowed to stay. And when you finally reach that place in her, the place that no longer tries to perform or impress, you will see a version of her that no one else has ever seen. But here's the catch. If you're not ready, she'll sense it long before you admit it to yourself. So be ready. Because once you touch that part of her, everything shifts. You won't even notice it at first. There won't be a dramatic moment or a grand gesture, but something will change the very day she realizes you can hold her without trying to contain her. She watches not just how you carry yourself in public, but how you behave in the quiet, private, unremarkable moments where your pride has nowhere left to hide. She pays attention when she speaks the hard truths, and you don't ask her to soften them. When her emotions show up out of sync with your expectations, when the version of her that appears isn't easy or convenient, she doesn't need you to agree with everything she feels. She's watching something far more important. Can her entire emotional spectrum exist in your presence without being treated as a threat to your identity? Most men, they aren't ready for that. They're drawn to her lightness and openness until it reflects something inside them they've avoided for years. The fear of not being enough, the pressure to be in control, the anxiety of not fixing, not leading, not performing. But here's the truth. She doesn't need you to lead. She needs you to witness. She needs to know that when she stops being charming, you won't go cold. That when she's grieving something unnamed, you won't retreat behind logic or silence. She needs to know you can stay conscious when the atmosphere shifts, and you'd be surprised how many men don't even notice the exact moment they start to emotionally pull away. They lean out when it stops being easy. They tense up when she grows quiet. They steer the conversation back to what's familiar, what flatters them. But intimacy doesn't grow in comfort. It lives in those raw, honest moments where your image is no longer enough to hold her attention. If the only time you can engage is when you feel admired or desired, you haven't truly learned to connect. You've learned to perform. And that right there is when she begins to step back. No announcement, no fanfare, because she doesn't owe you that. That's where most men stop. But for the few who choose to stay without trying to change her, fix her, or escape the tension, something extraordinary opens up. In the final part, we'll uncover how the smallest actions, the quietest choices, can unlock the deepest loyalty. In the previous section, we uncovered how women respond not to control or perfection, but to emotional presence, the kind of calm resilience that doesn't need to fix or explain, just to stay. Now, let's take that one step deeper. She doesn't storm out. She doesn't slam doors. She simply stops reaching for something she's finally accepted, can't hold the weight of who she is. And by the time you realize she's gone, the distance will already feel too wide to cross. It won't be a dramatic goodbye. It will be a slow withdrawal, like light fading from a room. You might tell yourself she needed space, or that she was too complex, too sensitive. But if you're honest, you'll know the truth. She just got tired. Tired of translating her emotional world into terms you wouldn't resist. Tired of filtering her truth to keep your comfort intact. That she won't remember you for the things you gave. She'll remember what she had to withhold. And if she once offered you the part of her that was unscripted, unguarded, messy, real, then you were given something most never see, not just access, but trust. And here's what most men miss. That trust wasn't won through clever words or charm. It was earned through your stillness, your patience, your ability to be present when she had nothing to offer but truth. Ironically, emotional connection isn't about saying the right thing. It's about restraint. It's your willingness to let her speak without hijacking the moment. It's your capacity to sit with her frustration without rushing to fix it. It's when you resist the urge to turn her vulnerability into a task you must complete so you can feel useful again. The men who stay connected the longest aren't the ones who always understand her. They're the ones who don't punish her when they don't. When she's angry and you don't shrink. When she's silent and you don't push. When she says something that challenges your ego and you don't make it about you. That's when she feels safe. It's not the words. It's the stability. You don't need to speak her emotional language fluently. You need to be fluent in your own reactions, because that kind of self-awareness, it creates the space where she can finally show up, not edited, not managed, just whole. And once she senses you can hold that, once she feels you won't tense the moment she becomes too much, something changes in her. Not loudly, not suddenly, but slowly, quietly. She begins to trust that she doesn't have to shrink to be received. And in that space, something deeper than attraction begins to take shape. It's not just romance. It's not just desire. It's recognition. Recognition that you're not just there for the shiny, curated pieces of her. You're here for the entire arc, even the broken chapters she never showed anyone. The grief that never had words. The fear disguised as independence. The emotional weight she's carried for years alone because asking for help always came with a cost. And you, if you've done the internal work, won't flinch. You won't need to define the moment. You won't chase clarity. You'll just stay present because you've stopped confusing discomfort with danger. That kind of presence isn't loud. It doesn't perform. It's felt like a silence that doesn't demand to be filled. Like a gaze that doesn't search for validation. Like a hand resting gently on her back that says, "I'm here," without needing a response. Most men never realize true intimacy isn't created by effort. It's allowed through containment. And a containment that matters. It's not about controlling the moment. It's about holding space for it, without trying to redirect it toward what makes you feel safe. You want to be unforgettable? Stay when it's no longer flattering. Remain when there's nothing left to gain. Don't disappear when the story stops revolving around you. That's what you remember. Not your most impressive moments, but your most grounded ones. Way you stayed steady when she was hard to love. The way your tone didn't shift when she disagreed with you. The way you made her feel seen without asking her to. Become smaller to keep your attention, even if the relationship doesn't last. That memory will, not because she's clinging to the past, but because you left a mark. You became a reference point. A memory her nervous system uses to measure what it feels like to be fully met. And once a woman has been fully met, she doesn't forget. She compares everything after that moment to the standard you set. And you, whether you ever return or not, you remain part of that calibration. Because in a world full of men who need to be the center of gravity, you allowed her to be whole without needing her to orbit around you. That's not about power. That's about clarity. She didn't have to wonder if you could hold space for her. You proved it when you didn't try to control it, And for that, you will always remain in the quiet part of her that keeps score. Not of who won, but of who stayed conscious. No one can take that from you, and no one else will ever touch her quite the same way again. If this message stirred something in you, if it reached a place that words rarely touch, then you already know this wasn't just a script. It was a mirror. And if you're ready to go even deeper into the hidden patterns, the quiet wounds, and the self-awareness that reshapes how we connect and love, then don't leave. Subscribe to the channel, because every video here at Pure Stoic Truth is made to strip away illusion, awaken clarity, and give voice to the truths you've carried in silence. And if tonight's message spoke to you, drop a comment. Let it be seen, because you never know who might read your words and begin to heal. And if you're carrying something personal right now, know this: you are not alone. You were never meant to carry your journey without understanding. We'll be right here, making the kind of videos that speak to the parts of you the world tends to overlook. You just have to keep showing up. See you in the next one. The shocking truth about why women leave men. Stay present, stay aware, and never forget, real connection doesn't demand it holds.